particular session. So just as a startup question, can I know from the team here on the call, like who has heard about Inaya already? Now that it's 1 month since we have launched it, anybody who can just put on their camera or write on the chat, like what do they know about Inaya? Not sure if you were on the orientation calls which we did in April. Anybody? Come on, guys.
Okay, we have some responses on the chat.
Okay, somebody says not heard before. So we are very sorry that you haven't heard. However, we will...
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
Yeah, from the mails which we've been exchanged, we come to know that there is a proposal, a project for employees who wants emotional support.
Absolutely.
For whatever
right.
is their problem, to be kept as highly confidential. This is initiative by the management. This is what I understand.
Amazing. Sukumaran, right? That's how we pronounce your name, right? Thank you so much
right.
and for volunteering. And it's absolutely right. It is a service provided by the employer, by the management to the Algorithmic employees. It's a benefit. It's a free counseling benefit. Free as in for the first 4 calls, as we had communicated, that it is free to utilize for mental support, mental health support. So amazing. I see on the chat as well, somebody writing counseling support for ESAG employees. Yes, Smita, you're absolutely right. And Ibn, thank you for completing the orientation call as you have stated. So coming back to Inaya. So yes, Inaya is our EAP, our Employee Assistance Program. We very much launched it in April. So actually 25th of March to be precise, but April is where we kick-started with our orientation sessions. And it's an amazing benefit. And we are actually amazed to see there is a lot of positive response that we have been getting since its launch. A lot of Algorithmic employees have used the service and glad to know that they trust the service. We have some good feedback exchanges from employees who have used it. And good to know that they are giving importance to their mental health. And we said that we have hosted around 4 orientation sessions. The turnaround was approximately around 200 to 250 employees over these 4 sessions. And of course, we will be conducting more of these in the coming days. Because of course, we have a huge workforce and it's difficult that to cover all of them, of course, only in 4 sessions. So this was about the orientation. What's next? So next is, of course, we launched a wellness calendar. I'm not sure if you all have got a communication from the corporate communications team or from your HRs, wherein we have stated that we have launched our wellness calendar for Q2 for now. And what does this calendar contain? If anybody on the call, I'm not sure if they've seen, can also tell me if they've seen the wellness calendar for Q2. Okay,
Are there
there is
any goodies?
silence.
Are there any goodies for people who are answering, Bhavna?
Why not? We can always get some goodies. That's something to take away from Neha. I would look into that for our next session. So we will come back to you with some goodies. But for now, at least we can, it would be a good opportunity to share that information with so many people on the call. So that in itself is like a reward, right? To come forward. Okay, so in the interest of time, let me tell you guys. So what is our wellness calendar? Our wellness calendar, of course, is like a snapshot of the various wellness related activities that we would be conducting over different quarters. And that is, of course, for you. It's the benefit is for you. And what this calendar would contain is like information about various webinar topics. If there will be any other activities related to wellness, any workshops, any in the engagement survey, for example, last year we had asked these questions to all of you, to all the Algorithmic employees grade 16 and above, whether what kind of wellness initiatives are they looking forward to from the HRs to host it for you or from the management. So we, of course, had a lot of responses that we gathered. And based on that, we of course had to list down, like a checklist was done on the priorities, the top topics or top in-demand services that have been requested, like checkups, like of course these webinar topics, and anything and everything related to the wellness, physical, mental, everything. So glad to know that, of course, those responses helped us in finalizing that how we would be taking this wellness journey forward. And as part of the Q2, what we did, we prioritized what were the top 3 topics, and one of them was anger management. That's where we come up with this particular session of anger management. And we would be doing that informative webinar today, and lots of them would be happening, of course, in the coming days. We did one topic already about diabetes, if you all remember, which was last week. If anybody, I'm not sure if attended it. Did anybody attend the diabetes webinar from AXA, which was last week?
No.
Hello? No. Okay,
No,
I see a no on the
no,
chat.
I did not attend it.
Okay,
I also
not a
did not
problem.
attend.
Not a problem. There were a couple of them. We had around 30 employees who had attended the diabetes webinar from the team, from the group. Maybe they're not on the call. And that was our first wellness activity for Q2. And followed by that, we are here today for the anger management webinar. And that's our second activity. Like these, we will be conducting a lot more in the coming days, guys. And of course, we would request all of you to take advantage of these, because these are good topics and they are in demand actually from your end. So with me, of course, is our LifeWorks team, who actually are our INAYA partner, who are our EAP partner. And they would be the ones who would be taking this journey forward. So let me share first a quick presentation with you. Just a second. Raj, may I request Raj or Natasha if you can make me the host so I can just share my screen with the guys on the call?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, great. I'm the host now. Give me a while. Let me share the screen. So everybody on the call, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
ma'am.
So of course, we would like to again welcome you to the management workshop, because now our expert is on the call. So who is our expert? Our guest speaker is Ms. Natasha Varsani. She works with LifeWorks as a psychologist, and she's an MA in marriage, family and child therapy, and it's from the Gold Gate University, USA. She's a mental health professional with more than decades of experience applying psychotherapy, evidence-based services to patients with varying mental health disorders. She's an expert. Her expertise lies in marriage, family, and child therapy, and she's CDA licensed psychologist and approved by the DHCC Dubai. So a very warm welcome to Ms. Ritasha. I would just make you the host now and would request you to take the session forward. Yeah. I think so. This is the one.
We're still not there.
Ms. Natasha, can you check from your end if you're now the host?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bhavna, for introducing me to the members of Algur, and it's an honor to be with you all here today. Today, the topic that we are going to talk about is obviously about the anger, and I hope by end of this workshop, you would have broader picture of what anger is. It will provide an insight and tools to cope with anger. So today the agenda is we are going to talk about basic understanding of anger, its misconceptions, causes or common triggers, inappropriate behavioral signs, impact of anger on brain and body, and finally the strategies that we are going to talk about. So let's begin with basic understanding of anger. So what is anger? Anger is an emotion characterized by antagonism towards someone or something you feel has deliberately done you wrong. In other words, it's a feeling that evolves towards someone or a situation that is against your wish, or someone you feel has purposely done you harm. Now, there are 4 kinds of basic emotions. In order to understand anger, it is important that you understand that there are 4 kinds of basic emotions. They are universal, which means these basic emotions are the same throughout the culture. So happiness is related to reward, sadness is related to punishment, fear and anger is related to stress. So today we are going to focus on how the fear and anger builds up, due to the stress, how it builds up fear and anger, which induces fight or flight response. There are 3 stages of fight or flight response. Let's talk about what is fight or flight response. It is a physiological reaction that occurs in response to a perceived threat or danger. So, it is important. Such responses are very important because it helps us to survive. It gives an indication that there is some real danger to which we can protect ourselves or act in certain way. So it could be a real threat or it could be a psychological threat. What could be the real threat? Real threat could be, you are driving a car, for example, and all of a sudden you see the car in front of you stops. Our immediate reaction will be to slam the brakes on. That is how our body prepares to act immediately. Now, that's the real threat. Now, the psychological threat is where, you've heard about phobia and anxiety. That is a psychological threat, which is not real, but the feeling and the body, the way it acts as if the situation is real. For example, if a person is scared of a dog or if a person is scared of any sort of animal or especially a dog, and that person, when he walks on the street and see the dog from far, the body will start getting activated. The person would see the real danger and would start processing the thoughts just by seeing a dog, that this dog is going to jump on me or this dog is going to bite me, even though the dog is very far from that person. So, these are also a psychological, it's a psychological threat, and how the fight or flight response and how it affects our body. Now, there are 3 stages of the flight or fight response, the way our body prepares to take action. So let's talk about the alarm stage. Alarm is a reaction stage that refers to the initial symptoms the body experiences during stress. Now, what could be the initial symptoms? For example, in work setting, there could be longer hours of work, tight deadlines with the tight deadlines of your projects, conflicting opinion among your colleagues, job insecurity. These are some of the challenges that you face during, day-to-day in your work setting environment, and how these symptoms picks up to combat the stress. So these are the initial symptoms that the body experiences during the stress, and it is directly associated with the physiology reaction, whereby your heart, it increases your heart pressure, heart rate, it increases your blood pressure. So your body is on the alert stage. Now, the next is the resistance stage, resistance reaction stage. What happens in this stage, that after the initial shock of stressful event, the body begins to repair itself. So say again, you have now started accepting the longer hours of work, you've started managing how to finish the tight deadlines, in such ways, the way you have coping mechanism, your body begins to repair in such a way that your heart rate and your blood pressure begins to normalize. Now, the problem is when there is longer period of stress, or the time that you do not deal with that situation, it leads to irritability, frustration, and poor concentration. So it is very important at the resistance stage that you must learn, or you should have the coping skills to identify the stress and combat the situation. You may think at this stage that you are managing the stress, but it may not be true, because your body's response is saying something else. For example, shaking legs. You must have seen a lot of people sitting on a chair and shaking either one of the leg or both legs. This shows that there is something going on. The body is saying something, but we are unaware of the triggers that is creating this change in the physiological process. Last but not least is the exhaustion stage. This is the result of prolonged or chronic stress. Here, your body completely gives up. It weakens your immune system and puts you at risk. So exhaustion stage is the worst stage where we are unable to deal with stress and how it affects on our physical, emotional, and mental health. So let's see mental health. It creates fatigue, depression, anxiety, decreased stress tolerance, rage, and what are the physical symptoms? Headaches, heart palpitations, increased blood pressure, tightening of chest, pressure in head, tingling sensation. So, I would like all of you to think about these 3 stages of flight or fight response, which normally we face on our day-to-day basis, and how shall we protect ourselves for not getting into the exhaustion stage, and what steps we should be taking it, whereby we can combat our problems in the resistance stage itself. Okay, now moving on to the misconception about anger. First and foremost, most of the people think anger is a negative emotion. It's not true. Anger is the most powerful yet misunderstood emotion. It is a very healthy emotion. It is a normal emotion. When we go through the feelings of anger, it increases the flow of energy inside our body. It tells us to take charge of the situation. It enables us to communicate our feelings. What could be the examples of, what could be the example of this? For example, Martin Luther King was very angry towards the racism, and he fought against racism. Mother Teresa, she fought for poverty. Mahatma Gandhi fought for freedom. So all these people had angry feelings, but they converted their feelings into the positive ones. They channelized their energy in a proper direction so that they can make a difference in the society. So if anger is channelized, if the feelings of anger is channelized in a positive way and a constructive way, obviously, you end up making a very disciplined action. Now, just, taking, and also the other example that I think of at the moment is the COVID crisis in India. Everybody is very angry, even we sitting here, and we have our family members, near and dear ones in India. We feel so helpless, and the way India is unable to cope up this situation, how the medical system is also collapsing. We feel so angry, but at the same time, how this energy is channelized, whereby, in India, people are trying to make groups within the society, community, and trying to help each other to ensure that, hospital beds are available, and taking care of the medical supplies and so on. So again, it is a very powerful, emotion. Next is anger is inherited. Anger is inherited? No, it's not true. You must have heard people saying, that I am angry actually because it has come from my father. Well, it's not true. The research shows that, there is no one is born with specific set of expressing anger. So, the way we act out depends on how we are born and brought up, So that could be our parents, other family members, friends in childhood, whereby how they have expressed their anger. There are families where, we would see the domestic violence, abuse, or acting in a very aggressive way. So children would definitely would pick up that behavior, and they would start modeling the role of expressing anger in similar way. So certainly it is not inherited. It is a learned behavior. Anger automatically leads to aggression. Not necessarily true. Anger may lead to aggression, but it not always leads to aggression. So what does that mean? Most of us, we feel angry at some point of time, but have we really acted out in an aggressive way? No, we haven't. Like, for example, you are getting late for work, and all of a sudden the police officer stops. Obviously, the police officer have an authority to stop us. We cannot get angry, or we cannot act out in an aggressive way. So we do know how to control our anger, our irritability, our frustration, and not necessarily acting out. So if we have that, if we know how to control at that point of time, certainly that shows that you can also control your aggression onto others. Next is venting your anger releases it. Now, again, this I have seen when I come across parents and during the session. Most of, it's a myth. They say that when my child gets angry, I tell my child to punch on the pillow, or to punch on the punching bag, to kick and scream, So these are the ways that they believe that this is the best way to release their anger. But certainly not. What happens is, if you start hitting on pillow, or punching on punching bag, or kicking on the punching bag, screaming, it reinforces the aggression. It reinforces the aggression, which means that it's a certain set of behavior that is telling you that it is not okay to get angry on person, but it is okay to get angry onto the objects. Certainly, it is not a healthy and adaptive way to, release your anger. Ignoring your anger makes it go away. So you have this feeling of, irritability, frustration, fatigue, and you feel like blowing up. But instead, what you do is you try to avoid it, you suppress it, you tend to smile even though you are frustrated, just to ensure the peace in an environment. What happens in such cases? It does more harm if you suppress your anger or you ignore it. It impacts on your physical as well as mental health. On physical health, it will, you will end up having hypertension, and on mental health, you may get depressed. Men are angrier than women. This is a very common myth. Most of us think that, men are more angrier, which is not true. Both men and women, they have same intensity of anger. It is just their way of expressing it is very different. So men, obviously, they are loud, they are direct in terms of their anger, they are impulsive, they are aggressive. While women, on the other hand, they are, they are indirect in their approach. If they don't like somebody, they would cut off the relationship, they would gossip, they would sulk. So, these are the different ways of men and women dealing with anger, but the intensity remains the same. So this is all about the misconception about anger. Now let's talk about, the causes of anger and the common triggers. Now, how do we know that what is actually going on behind our, behind our displayed behavior? So it could be genetic predispositions. Genetic predisposition meaning, some of the children, when they are born, they are very sensitive to lights, sounds, textures, sense of touch that would make them more sensitive towards, they would become more easily, they would easily get irritated, frustrated. But however, that doesn't mean that, the obviously anger is inherited. It's just that they have decreased low tolerance, to which, this can be manageable. Memories of childhood trauma, something that, as a child, we have witnessed physical violence or domestic abuse, or, experienced any sort of abuse, experienced car accident, any sort of, traumatic situations, or even in the case of natural disasters such as earthquake and floods, can also, leave deep scars within us, and how it impacts till we don't resolve. Financial troubles, relationship difficulties, loss of loved one, underlying mental health disorder, any medical problems. So any of this could be a cause or a common trigger to which we act, impulsively without even a second thought. Okay. Sec. Okay, inappropriate, hold on just a sec. I'm sorry, did I miss? Okay, so the inappropriate behavioral signs. Now we know that anger is a feeling, emotion. Aggression is a behavior or action which is hostile, destructive, or violent. So when anger is not okay, we talked about the positive feelings of anger. Now, when it is not okay, when it turns into aggression, okay? So anger that affects your relationships and social life, constantly feeling impatient, irritated, focusing on negative experiences, making verbal abuse, making threats, demands, or frequently criticizing others, being physically violent to people or damaging their property, feeling compelled to do something, or getting into impulsive acts such as reckless driving, violating law, engaging in substance addiction such as drugs, alcohol, and smoking. These are the signs, that is something telling you that there is something going on and you have not resolved the underlying problems. So this again, as we talked previously about the exhaustion stage, this is again, these are the signs and symptoms of the exhaustion stage, whereby how your body gives up and you become out of control, and how it starts affecting your surroundings. Now, let's talk about, the impact of anger on brain and body. So, I mean, it is so important to realize that the feeling of unhealthy emotion or something that is not dealt, or we constantly anticipate negative thoughts or a situation, how it changes the flow of energy in the brain. So how the brain works based on the emotions and the meanings that you attach to the thoughts and its behavior. Now, sources of anger, it could be, from disappointment to frustration, judgment, fear or rejection, and how this passes the message to amygdala. Now, the role of amygdala is it controls behavior and emotion. It plays a very crucial role in terms of flight or fight response that we talked about, and the 3 stages of the flight and fight response. So, if we constantly feel stress, the amygdala, it gets activated. It's on very high alert. From amygdala, it passes the source of anger, it goes to the hypothalamus. The role of hypothalamus is it takes control of our physiological cycle, eating, drinking, sleeping, controlling our heart rate as well. So that is its role. Next, moving on to the pituitary gland. It is also called the growth hormone. Its main role is about, sexual maturation, reproduction, controlling metabolism. And here again, its role is about when you put on weight or you lose weight, here the pituitary gland plays a very important part. From pituitary gland, now the message goes to the adrenal glands. Now, adrenal glands are the structure that located on top of both kidneys. Its role, it controls the stress hormones. The stress hormones are cortisol, adrenaline, and non-adrenaline. I'm not going to go in that detail, but what adrenal glands do is it plays a role to protect your immune system. It reduces inflammation. So what happens is when your stress level is very high, this adrenal glands would affect the immune system. And, there is there is a neurotransmitter called serotonin, which plays a very crucial role in our brain, that when we are happy, when we feel happy or when we are happy, it's this serotonin that plays an important role. But when you are in a very, when you are on a high rage or in an aggressive behavior, it reduces the serotonin, to which it doesn't allow you to stay happy. You become more irritable, you are in pain, and it leads to further aggression or even depression. So can you imagine that how our constant negative thoughts really shape, the changes of the brain, and how each and every part of the brain gets affected just by our thoughts. So this was about the brain. Now let's talk about how it affects on our body. Now, how the stress hormones affect our body. It affects our cardiovascular system, it affects our immune system, our eyesight, it affects our digestive system, we get migraines. And the most important here, when these symptoms become chronic, blood vessels become clogged and damaged. This can lead to stroke and heart attack. So now again, coming to a point whereby it is so crucial to deal with your stress, and you just cannot allow it to hang on whatever is going on. Now, let's talk on anger management strategies. Now that you know how the fight or the flight response prepares our body to combat the stress, what are the misconceptions of anger, what are the causes, or what are the common causes or the triggers of the anger, and how it impacts on our brain and body. It's time really to act on it. So one of the strategies, there are several strategies to deal with anger. So let's talk about ABCs of anger. Now, obviously, anger management is not about getting rid of anger. Rather, it is about learning and practicing better ways of expressing anger. It is, as we discussed, that anger is not a negative emotion. It's a very healthy emotion. It is how to ensure that it doesn't lead to aggression. So ABCs of anger. A is antecedent or your trigger. What stimulated the anger response? B would be reaction provoked by anger. And C, the consequences. What happened as a result of controlling or not controlling one's anger? So what could be the example here, like, what stimulated the anger response? For example, at your workplace, say one of your colleague or your supervisor made a critical comment on your work. Now, you have to identify that what stimulated that response. Is it, now it could be right away, what your thought processes, what are your thought processes telling about those comments? Behavior is, again, reaction provoked by anger. What was the reaction that you responded to that critical comment? Did you withdraw from it, or you reacted in a, based on your facial expression? And the consequences, what happened as a result of controlling or not controlling one's anger? Did your colleague or supervisor did notice that change in your behavior? So the trigger could be anything. It could be even the trigger from the family or from any personal reasons or at the workplace. It's very important here to identify what actually stimulated the anger within you. At times, not necessarily, it could be, the work situation, it could be something else as well. Anger thermometer. Again, anger thermometer is a point scale whereby 10-point scale whereby 1 is represents no anger and 10 is at the highest level. It is very important here, to check on your responses. If you keep a log whereby whenever you feel that, a couple of days ago you really acted out, you blowed things out of proportion, though it shouldn't be done, but you did it. So what made you do that? What did you do? Did you yell at that point of time? Where do you see yelling? Was it 4 or was it 6? Were you abusive? If not verbally, then within, were you swearing on that person or the situation? So, this log, the anger thermometer, helps you gradually to identify, and it will give you a cue in terms of how to change your behavior and slow down your impulsive behavior and also the reactive responses. Thought stopping technique. Now, thought stopping technique, again, it focuses on just giving the same example. Say, for example, your colleague or supervisor made a comment on your work. Now, the immediate thought, as a person would be like, did I, am I really bad? Am I weak? I didn't do my work properly. So these are the thoughts that would make you unpleasant. So it's important to notice such thoughts and then give a pause on that thought. Now, the next step is, once you give the pause on the thought, challenge your thought process in terms of, okay, the comment was based on my work. It wasn't based on me. That doesn't mean that I am weak or I'm bad or I'm not done my work in a proper way. So you have to challenge that thought. You have to give other alternatives and the benefit of doubt. Reroute your mind to an inspiring or distracting thought instead. So, you would then focus on, today it was a good day at work. I put my, if not 8 hours, at least I put my, 5 hours, and I did a very productive work, and I'm very happy and I'm proud of myself. So this is the way that, you should able to identify what is being said and what meanings are you attaching, whether to identify, is it the healthy one or the unhealthy one. Mindfulness is a technique that helps you to calm your anger. However, this technique you can do at a quiet place. It needs, and when you have, at least 20-30 minutes of time. It's always good to do this before going off to sleep. What you have to do is, check in with your body, check in whether you can either sit, or you can also, even in a sleeping position also, you can do this mindfulness technique. Once you take your position, you take some deep breaths and, think about a time where what made you angry, disappointed, feeling of rejection or rage. It's the time you just have to focus on that situation. And then you need to watch on where is that sensation you are experiencing, in which part of your body. Once you realize that, okay, you are going through some sensations, either in your hand or in your stomach or legs or wherever, instead of retaliating or avoiding, practice bringing compassion to that sensation. Now, this is not a time to judge or do analytical thinking here. It is all about acceptance, accepting your anger, accepting the good and the bad feelings that is going on inside at this moment. And then, gradually you allow that feeling to let go. This helps to calm your body, and gradually, the arousal stage of the physiological reaction that happens during the time of flight or fight response. This mindfulness technique allows us to stay calm, and we are very much in control. Obviously, it requires a lot of practice and also patience. What are the common ways to distract yourself? Now, the technique that we discussed so far, it is a technique on the long-term basis. These are the common ways to distract yourself. It works for the short-term basis. So, it is immediate. For the people who have experienced anger, they have been using this technique, such as taking a deep breath right there and there and count till 50, listening to music, talking or chatting to a friend, family member, use humor to diffuse the anger, take a time out and find a quiet place, or go for a short walk. So these are the common ways that would help you immediately. But once again, it's a short-term strategy. It is not a long-term strategy. Before I end this, it is very important that you keep these points in mind. Set boundaries. It is very, when people are aggressive, they are unable to set boundaries. So it is setting boundary plays a very important role. Be assertive. You can take a stand, put your point across, but at the same time, you do not have to be, physically abusive or use verbal abuse. It can be done in a very assertive way. Challenge your negative thoughts, negative talks or thoughts. Be empathetic with yourself and with others. Forgive others and yourself. Practice self-love and compassion. Seek social support. So these are the very important points at the end of the day. This is the day-to-day reminder that you can make little changes, in your behavior, in your thought process, if you bring conscious awareness from moment to moment. These are the self-help resources. There are books on the anger management, anger, the misunderstood emotion, how to control your anger, the cow in the parking lot. So, if you want to know more about the anger and the techniques, these are the books that will give you an insight and tools to work on. Now, when is the time, that you may seek professional help? When you've used all the techniques that we have discussed, you've tried your level best in terms of controlling your anger, your emotion, yet you feel helpless. So, that is the time that you ask for help. Obviously, you do not have to fight your battle alone. It is like, say you have a fever, and, you take a paracetamol and you are just completely fine. You've done a home remedy. Again, after a couple of days, fever comes back, and now it's been 2-3 days, it's not gone. So what do you do in that case? Obviously you would be worried and you would go to your GP. and seek help. Similarly, even in terms of mental health, there are things if you are unable to do it. I mean, we don't have all the answers as human beings. So it is always better to seek help before it starts affecting, on our physical and mental health. So, it's also when you feel that, your behavior is out of control, your relationship is, it's falling apart. These are the signs. Or also when you see that people are giving you feedback that, on your behavior, this is the time where you have to, seek help. Again, this is a very good quote. And I have seen also, very closely among my patients, among my clients who have this emotion. Anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured. As we discussed one of the issue in the misconception of anger, that venting out anger is really not a solution. And lashing out may give you temporary relief, but from inside it is really burning you up. So it's time that don't take this anger as aggressive behavior in a very light way. If you have any problems, try to take help from the points that we have discussed. Or if you see somebody needs help, you definitely can able to guide them and see that person in a very different approach. Be very compassionate towards the people who goes through these feelings. They are not the bad people. It is just that there are underlying problems that they are unable to resolve and they need extra help. So that's it. This is all I wanted to communicate and bring to your awareness. So thank you very much, everybody, for having me and giving me the full cooperation throughout the time. So before I end, does anybody have any questions or anything that you would like to discuss about related to what we talked so far?
Team on the call, I would request to utilize this next 5 to 7 minutes for the Q&A. The window is open. You can either open up your mics and speak up or maybe write on the chat, and the expert is here to answer the queries on anger or anything that comes to your mind relevant to the topic. Any questions?
Eben this side. I would just like to thank you for the inputs that you have given. I feel, I really needed some of these tips. So I'm very thankful for that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eben.
Hi, this is Sukumar. It is good to know that anger is not a negative trait.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so one can always put it into good effect. Like in a cricket field, a player is venting out his anger through hitting a couple of boundaries, or a football, he went going ahead and scoring a goal. This can be taken as an example. The problem probably in our company facing is those who are in touch with the customer service. They get constant calls. He may not have a proper answer. So in such cases, I think controlling the anger using these techniques will be of great help. Also in your personal life, either you bring your anger from your personal life to the office and vice versa. So it can affect both your family life as well as your professional life. And my next question is to HR. Will there be a series of meeting now
Yes.
as a continuation to this?
Like
we have touched upon only anger management, right?
Correct, yes. So just going back to the question, Sukumaran, like you mean a series of workshops relevant to anger management, like the techniques, or other topics, like other webinars?
Other
Other
topics.
topics, yes, there will be, as part of the wellness calendar, there will be more activities rolled out, more webinars rolled out relevant to wellness. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Like
much.
mindfulness and many other areas we would touch base during our wellness journey forward in 2021, Mr. Sukumar. Definitely.
I appreciate and thank you very much, Natasha, for your.
Yeah. Any questions, team? How can, so my question actually just to Ritasha.
Yes.
Ritasha, how can an expert or like you help somebody who has anger management issues? Like what would be your approach when somebody calls you that I have anger issues, you know?
Yes. So, like as I said, that I have seen very closely in my therapeutic session, people going through this anger issues and how it is affecting their married life. So when a person comes to me saying that I have an anger issue, the main goal of the therapist is, the way we work is we take a very detailed case history from childhood to the teenager and to the adult, until the adulthood, to see are there any stressors or what are the underlying problems that are not being solved and a person is acting it in such a manner. So our goal as a therapist, is to make person aware and touch those areas where they have really not looked so far. They have blocked themselves and it is, they are venting out in a negative way, in an aggressive way in a family.
Okay.
Yes. So it is not basically, one particular reason. It could be overlapping and it could be in one or two areas.
Got it.
Yes. So I would like to, thank you everybody. And I'm so glad that I mean, obviously this anger management, it's I can talk a lot about it, but due to obviously the time limit, I'm glad that I was able to provide you with tools and give you the broader approach of this topic. So,
Natasha, we have a question from Syed that how can we control adrenaline rush swiftly if something triggers anger? So there's a question from him.
Right. So again, going back to the anger management strategies that we discussed, one of that is mindfulness. As we also discussed how the flight and fight response, it triggers the physiological reaction of the body. And this is where we have to, with the help of mindfulness technique, with the help of thought stopping technique, keeping a log of how you are acting out during that adrenaline rush. What do you do? What are the thoughts? And these are some of the techniques where by you would definitely able to control the flow of energy inside your body. So once that is controlled, definitely, you would not act in an impulsive way. Before you act, you would think, you would bring the full awareness on your thoughts and your body, and then you would act in a very healthy way or in a more acceptable way. So again, it doesn't go right away. You need to have patience. You need to do regular practice. And certainly you will see a difference with these techniques.
Syed, I hope that answers your question. Syed, if you're on the call. Hello. Not sure if he's on the call. He's on the call.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. One question is that adrenaline rush, this is the reason why body responds like uncontrollably for in some people shake, some people's um, are unable to communicate properly, their tongue gets slurring problem.
Yes, so it is basically a part of adrenal glands that we talked about. It controls the stress hormone. Okay, so when it is activated or when it is on high alert, which means, you know, when we constantly anticipate the negative thoughts or events, our body gets into a very high alert. And that's where, you know, it affects our physical health. Tingling sensation.
So few people, sorry for interrupting if I'm doing it. So few people face this thing very quickly, that the last stage, that is the kidney affecting thing, what you told us, that triggers very quickly for few people.
Yes, it does.
In situations.
Right, absolutely. In some
because
yeah, go on.
Yeah, because I know few people who shakes and are unable to communicate when they are angry, and we discuss these things with them, but they are unable to cope up with that because they don't have time to control it. Actually, they just go forward very quickly to that stage.
Yeah, because this is a stage whereby, you know, they are unable to control it. Now, that's how, you know, when we were talking about how it impacts on your brain. So this is how now brain has wired such responses accordingly. So in order to break this pattern, mindfulness technique is one of the very important technique where you start to control your physiological reaction, to which this behavior would go away.
So that means if you are not in the situation, then only you have to think about how you have reacted to particular situation and teach your mind.
Yes, you know, you have to analyze that. See, many times people are not even aware when people, their hand shakes or their legs shakes. They are not aware many times. Yes.
Yes.
So, but definitely there is a lot of imbalance or something that is triggering them. However, it is important, and these people would definitely at some point of time they would react in a very impulsive way, or could be withdrawing from the situation. So it is not necessary that it's the only time when they act or they don't act, but if the if the physical response is showing such signs, it is important that you have to do something about it, regardless of you act or you don't act.
Okay, but you told that the mindfulness is a short-term strategy, not the long-term.
No, mindfulness is a long-term strategy. The short-term strategy is about the common ways that people distract for.
Okay. Yeah, the walk and all these things.
Yes, with walk, listening to music, taking deep breath. Yeah.
Okay, done. Thank you very much for all your help.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Any other questions, team? Would be great to know. We will be sharing the Zoom recording link of this session post once we have the session in our inboxes, and it would be rolled out to your inboxes soon. Yeah. If any other questions, do feel free to write to us. That would be good, because we can get you the responses from the expert themselves. You can write to LifeWorks directly. They have an email ID, inaya@lifeworks.ae. Please feel free to write to them as well. And
yes, we would be happy, to resolve your query through emails. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. I believe in the interest of time, we can end the session here. And thank you, Ritasha. Thank you, LifeWorks team, for of course, conducting this session for us. Thank you, everybody on the call, for being a part of the session and making it interactive. And thank you again, and please stay safe, stay healthy, and
Thank you. And
control your anger when needed. Yes.
And thank you, Bhavna, so much for having me. You know, it was such a pleasure to share our expertise with the employees, and yeah, the audience have been lovely, and they have a very active listening skills. So I wish you all the best. And as Bhavna said, please feel free. If anything comes up later on and you have any questions, feel free to email us, and we would be happy to resolve your query. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.